should we begin, Anupam?
Yes, yes, you can begin.
All right, so this is time to begin, and I welcome you all to this Group Theory Sangam talk. Our speaker today is Dr. Abhijit Pal, Professor of Mathematics at Department of Mathematics and Statistics, IIT Kanpur. And today he is going to speak on height of subgroups. Professor Pal, over to you.
Okay, yeah. So thanks Manoj and Anupam for inviting me to talk in this platform. So I'll be speaking on this height of subgroup. So I work in geometric group theory. So in geometric group theory, mainly we deal with groups which act nicely on geometric object. And so using some property of those geometric objects, so we see that whether you can pull back some property in the group itself. Okay, so I'll be speaking on the height of the subgroups, and these subgroups I have taken from a group again which act nicely on hyperbolic matrix space. So I'll be explaining all the things in details. So here is my rough plan. So I'll explain first what do you mean by height of subgroups, and as I said, so I'll be defining this hyperbolic groups. And in order to define these hyperbolic groups, I have to define this, what do you mean by hyperbolic matrix space, quasi-isometry. And so what I'll show that if you take any quasi-convex subgroup of a hyperbolic group, so this has indeed finite height. And other than hyperbolic groups, so there are some groups called stable subgroups of a finitely generated group, so which has also finite height. So I'll be going to that thing also. And so in a relatively hyperbolic group also there is a definition of height. It's a little bit different, so I'll be going to that. And so there's an open problem that so suppose you have a subgroup of a hyperbolic group which has finite height. So does it imply that the group is quasi-convex? So yeah, so Mahan Mitra has some answered some partial answer to that thing in the graph of related to graph of groups. So I'll be going to that thing. Okay, so let me begin. So first, let me begin with this height of subgroup. So this definition is, algebraic. So this has been given by Githik, Mitra, Deeps, and Sagib. So what is the definition? So height of an subgroup is n. So if there exists a maximal collection of n distinct cosets, this G1H, GNH, such that this intersection, this n intersection of this conjugate, so this conjugate, so this is infinite. And if I take any n plus 1 distinct cosets, and if you take the intersection, n plus 1 intersection, so then that intersection will be finite. So this is the meaning of this n is maximal possible. Okay. So this definition is motivated from the three-manifold theory by the work of Peter Scott and Hess. Yeah. So let me give some examples. So this is, again, so I'll be not using any geometry here. So okay. So you take G to be this group, pre-product of this A and B. And if you take this subgroup A, and if you take any conjugate of this A, and if you take the intersection of that conjugate with this A, so that is trivial, right? So either it is A or trivial. So yeah. So therefore, this A has finite height in G. Similarly, B has finite height in G. So this thing is easy. And now if you take any finitely generated subgroup of a free group, okay, so this has this subgroup has also finite height. And the next example is, so if you take a cyclic subgroup generated by this matrix in PSL to Z, so this has also finite height. And another example, so if you take this subgroup generated by AB in this group, generated by A, B, C, D, and the product of this commutator is equal to S, has finite height. So this last three examples, So the group I have taken it to be the hyperbolic group. So free group is hyperbolic group, this PSL2Z is hyperbolic group. And the third one, this the group generated by ABCD, and the presentation, I mean the relation is the product of the commutator is 1. So this is the fundamental group of genus 2 surface. So these are all hyperbolic groups, and the subgroup I have taken it to be the quasi-convex subgroup. So in general, this is true that, so if you take a quasi-convex subgroup, a hyperbolic group, so this has finite height. Okay, so I'll be defining all this thing, and I'll be also explaining all this examples in detail. Yeah, Professor Kulkarni, I think you want to ask anything?
Please unmute yourself, sir. Yeah.
Yes. I can't hear you. Sir, I can't hear you.
Maybe type the question.
Yes. So maybe in the chat box, you can just write the question.
Abhijit, you
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Okay, so I'll go ahead.
Type it.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Maybe I can later respond to his question. Okay, so let me first define what do you mean by this hyperbolic metric space. So before that, what do you mean by geodesic metric space? So first of all, what is geodesic? So a geodesic between 2 points in a metric space. So there's a path of minimum length. Okay, so and a metric space is called geodesic metric space if any 2 points of this space can be connected by a geodesic. Okay, and we say that a geodesic triangle, so triangle means here, so you take any 3 points in the metric space and you join them by geodesic. So if a geodesic triangle is said to be delta slim, so if each side of that triangle is contained in delta neighborhood of union of other 2 sides. And a geodesic metric space is said to be delta hyperbolic. So if triangles are so if all the triangles are delta slim. Yeah. So if you take R2 with Euclidean metric, so the triangles are not slim, so uniformly slim. So therefore, so this in Euclidean space in R2 with Euclidean metric, so the triangles are fat, you can say. So R2 with Euclidean metric, so it is not a hyperbolic metric space. Okay, so now what are the example of this hyperbolic metric space? So if you take a tree, so tree means it is a graph without any circuit, and you assign edge length to be 1. So this becomes a graph without any circuit. Now if you take any triangle, so that will be a degenerate triangle. Okay, so any side of the triangle is contained in 0 neighborhood of other 2 sides. So these trees are your 0 hyperbolic metric space. And so this I have written this. So if you take the disk with hyperbolic metric, so this is log 3 hyperbolic metric space. So this I'll be explaining in the next slide. Okay, so yeah. So you take the unit disk and you put this Riemannian metric in this disk. So you put this Riemannian metric in this disk. So this metric is called hyperbolic metric. And disk with this metric, it is also sometimes called Poincare disk. So with respect to this metric, so one can prove that, so this diameter and the circular arcs which is meeting the circumference, this S1 orthogonally. So these are my geodesics. So this requires basic hyperbolic geometry. So these are my geodesics in this Poincare disk. And if you take any triangle here in this Poincare disk, so again one can prove that. So each side of that triangle, it is contained in delta neighborhood of union of other two sides, where this delta is log 3 in this Poincare disk. Yeah, this one's proved in basic hyperbolic geometry. And so the orientation preserving isometries of this Poincare disk. So this is PSU11. Okay. So there are other models of this hyperbolic space like upper half plane model, so that I'm not going to that thing. Okay. So now I have to define, so what do you mean by quasi-isometry? So in order to define hyperbolic group, so I have to define this quasi-isometry. So what do you mean by quasi-isometry? So it is a small perturbation of this isometry. You can think of in that way. So a map phi from x to y, so x and y are metric spaces, is said to be k epsilon quasi-isometry. So if first of all, it is a k epsilon quasi-isometric embedding. So what do you mean by k epsilon quasi-isometric embedding? It means that it satisfies this inequality. Okay. So if you put k equals to 1 and just epsilon equals to 0, so then this phi, it becomes an isometry onto its image. And if moreover, this phi is also coarsely surjective. So it means that, so if you take any element, the small y from the domain codomain space, and if there exists an element x from the domain space, such that this distance between y and phi x is uniformly bounded, so then we call this phi to be coarsely surjective. So phi is k epsilon quasi-isometry if both this phi is quasi-isometric embedding and phi is also coarsely surjective. So if you take any lattice in R2 of rank 2, for example, if you take the tallying of R2y squares, so then that is in R2 of rank 2, so that is quasi-isometric to R2 with Euclidean metric. Okay, and this definition I'll be needing later word. So what do you mean by quasi-geodesic? So if you take a map just from the interval, closed interval AB to X, so this is k epsilon quasi-geodesic. So if this alpha is just a k epsilon quasi-isometric embedding. So note that this alpha, it may not be continuous. So this will be continuous. So you can only if this epsilon is equal to 0. So if this epsilon equals to 0, so this is just give you a path. This is a biellipsis path kind of thing. And in a hyperbolic metric space, so this fact is true. So this is called stability of quasi-geodesics. So if you take a geodesic and a k epsilon quasi-geodesic joining same pair of points, so they lie in a bounded neighborhood of each other. So this property is called stability of quasi-geodesic. So using this stability property, one can prove that this hyperbolicity is quasi-isometric invariant. Okay, so if you have a quasi-isometry from x to y, so where this x is hyperbolic metric space, so then this y will be also a hyperbolic metric space. Okay. Okay. So now I'll be defining this hyperbolic group. So corresponding to a group, one can assign a geometric object. So this is mainly the Cayley graph. So you can assign this Cayley graph. So you take a group generated by this S, and you take the vertex set of this graph to be G, and two vertices G and G prime. So they share an edge if this G and G prime differ by, I think, G inverse G prime. So it belongs to your this S union S inverse. So this thing, it is a, so G inverse G prime. So either it is a generator or it is a inverse of the generator. And now if you assign the edge length to be 1, so this gives a metric on the graph. So you take this Cayley graph, And we say that this group is set hyperbolic. So a finitely generated group is said to be hyperbolic group. So if some K-graph of G is a hyperbolic metric space, and this definition is well defined in the sense that, so if you change the generating set, so you'll get a quasi-isometric map between the K-graphs, two K-graphs. And this hyperbolicity is quasi-isometric invariant, so therefore this definition is well defined. So a finitely generated group is said to be hyperbolic group if some K-graph of G is a hyperbolic metric space. Okay, so now what are the examples of hyperbolic groups? So if you take any free group, so free group on finite track free group, so those are hyperbolic groups, because if you take the K-graph of a free group, so it is a tree, and trees are your zero hyperbolic metric space, so therefore the free groups are hyperbolic groups. And now if you take any group which contains Z cross Z, so then that group, it will be not a hyperbolic group. Okay, because this Z cross Z, again, it is quasi-isometric to R2. So, and R2 is not a hyperbolic metric space. So Z cross Z is not a hyperbolic metric space. Okay, and this construction is by Rips. So it says that, I mean, you can construct many hyperbolic groups. So you take your any favorite finitely represented group Q. So from that, so there exists a short exact sequence such that, so this extension group, this G, so this is hyperbolic group. So Rips has proved this thing using the small cancellation property. So yeah. So you take any your favorite finitely represented group. So from that you will get a hyperbolic group. So you can create a lot of examples from this Rips thing. Okay. So next I'll be proving that fundamental group of closed genus G surface where G is greater than or equals to 2. So that is hyperbolic group. So I'll be doing it for genus G equals to 2 because it is simple to state this thing. So how do you get this genus 2 surface? So you take this Poincare disk and you take this regular geodesic octagon in this Poincare disk. So the sides of this octagon are geodesic. And now you have the side pairing. So this side pairing is done by this isometry of this Poincare disk. So here this green side has been identified to this V1, V4 has been identified to V2, V3 by an isometry A. So here you have 4 isometries doing this side pairing, and the quotient you get this genus 2 surface. And so you can prove that this fundamental group of this genus 2 surface, so it acts properly discontinuously and co-compactly on this Poincare disk, and the quotient space is your this genus 2 surface, and you have a covering map from this Poincare disk to this genus 2 surface. Okay, and what is the fundamental group of this genus 2 surface? Is the group generated by this A, B, C, D, and where the relation is the product of these commutators. This is 1. Okay, so this is a 1 related group.
Abhijit, one question.
Yes.
So any particular reason that you obtained this genus 2 surface starting from this disk? Because one can just do topological construction.
Yeah, so yeah, yes, so that's a nice question. So what you can do, so in fact you can put a hyperbolic metric, so using this construction,
okay.
So you can put a hyperbolic metric on this genus 2 surface.
Good. Yeah, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Yeah, and another thing, so I have in mind, so in the next slide I'll just show it to you. So in fact, if you take the Cayley graph of this fundamental group of genus 2 surface, so this in fact it is quasi-isometric to your Poincare disk. Okay, so if you just take this, so you can draw this Cayley graph in R2 also, but it will be not a quasi-isometric to R2. So here something different. I mean, this Cayley graph, in fact, it is quasi-isometric to your Poincare disk. So in fact, so if you, yeah, so in fact, okay. So let me go to the previous slide. So if you take this geodesic octagon and so you act, so let us take an isometry from this pi1s2, and if you act this on this octagon, so this will move to another octagon. Okay, so we'll have a tiling of this Poincare disk. Okay, so this is this tiling. So yeah, so this is this tiling of this Poincare disk. And so this one skeleton of this tiling, so this in fact it is the Cayley graph of this fundamental group of genus 2 surface. Yeah, so you can give a map from this Cayley graph of this pi1 of S2 to this Poincare disk via this assignment. So you take a vertex of this this tiling and you look into this orbit. Okay, so G is going to just G dot P, and this edge, so G and G prime. So this is mapped linearly to a geodesic joining GB and G prime B. So this, in fact, it gives you a map from this Cayley graph of pi1 S2 to this Poincare disk. And moreover, so this Cayley graph of pi1 of S2 is quasi-isometric to this Poincare disk. And this Poincare disk is a hyperbolic metric space. So therefore, this pi1 of S2, it will be also, the Cayley graph of pi1 of S2 is also a hyperbolic metric space. So therefore, this pi1 of S2, so this is a hyperbolic group. So in fact, this you can generalize. So if you take the fundamental group of a closed orientable surface of genus greater than or equal to 2, so that in fact, it is a hyperbolic group. Yeah. Okay. So, so next I'll be interested in this cyclic subgroup of this pi1 of S2. So I'll prove for the simple case. So let us take any simple closed curve in S2, and let us take this small h to be the element of this pi1 of S2 representing this alpha, and you take the cyclic subgroup generated by this h. So I'll be showing that this h has finite height in pi1 of S2. Okay, so this thing is this part is a little bit easy. So if you take any two lifts, alpha 1 tilde and alpha 2 tilde of alpha, so lifts means, so if you apply the covering map P on alpha 1 tilde, so it will be alpha. So that is the definition of lift. So if you take any two lifts of this alpha, so there exists some G belongs to this pi1 of S2 such that G dot alpha 1 tilde is equal to alpha 2 tilde. Okay, and because this capital H is the cyclic subgroup generated by this small h, so this h will stabilize this alpha tilde, and the conjugate, this GH G inverse, so this will stabilize this orbit of this alpha tilde, G dot alpha tilde. Okay, and if this G does not belongs to H, so this alpha tilde, so this will intersect this Poincare disk in 2 points. Okay, and this G dot alpha delta will also intersect the boundary of the Poincare disk in 2 points. And the boundary of this Poincare disk is the circle. And because they are distinct points, okay, so this will imply that this intersection H and this conjugate, so that is a trivial. Okay, so this proves that. So this proves that this H has finite height in this pi1 of S2. So in fact, more thing is true. So if you take, instead of simple closed curve, so if you take any closed curve and you take the cyclic subgroup generated by that element, so that has also finite height. Okay. Yeah. So the circle is the boundary at infinity of this Poincare disk. So similar to that thing. So if you take any proper hyperbolic metric space, so you can define a boundary, and that has been defined by Gromov. So how do you define that thing? So you take two geodesic rays. So you take the collection of geodesic rays starting from a single point P, and two geodesic rays are said to be equivalent. So if the distance C1t and C2t is at most k, so yeah, so k is independent of this t, and you take the collection of all set of all equivalence classes of this geodesic rays starting from this P, and you can put a topology given by this neighborhood system. So I'm not going to that thing. So corresponding to a proper hyperbolic metric space, so you can assign a boundary at infinity, and one can prove that, so that in fact, so this boundary at infinity for a proper hyperbolic metric space is compact, and that in fact it is a compactification of X, and that is called the Gromov compactification of X. So for instance, if you take a tree, so here the tree should be proper. So if you take a proper tree, so that is a zero hyperbolic metric space, so one can prove that the Gromov boundary, it is a Cantor set. And the Gromov boundary of this Poincare disk is the circle. And just I said that the fundamental group of this genus G surface, so this is quasi-isometric to your Poincare disk. So that is a hyperbolic group. So pi1 of SG is a hyperbolic group. And suppose you have a quasi-isometric between two hyperbolic metric space, so that will, yeah. So in the boundary level, so the boundary will be homomorphic to each other. So therefore, this Gromov boundary of pi1 of SG, it will be also the circle. Okay. So now let me define what you mean by this quasi-convex subgroup. Okay. So a subset Y of a geodesic space, so is said to be quasi-convex or epsilon quasi-convex. So if any geodesic joining 2 points of Y lie in epsilon neighborhood of Y. So any geodesic, so this will joining 2 points of Y will lie close to Y. So if you just take epsilon to be 0, so this will just give you the convexity. And a subgroup of a H of a hyperbolic group is quasi-convex. So if you take some orbit of that subgroup in the Cayley graph of G, so if that is quasi-convex set, so we call that subgroup to be quasi-convex subgroup. Okay. So again, so this one need to check. So this cyclic subgroups. So if you take any cyclic subgroups of a hyperbolic group, so these are my quasi-convex subgroups. So if you take any hyperbolic group, so if the element is of finite order, so any finite set in a hyperbolic metric space is a quasi-convex set. So therefore, finite subgroups are always quasi-convex subgroup. And in fact, if you take any element of infinite order and you take the cyclic subgroup, so that requires a bit of work to prove that that subgroup is also quasi-convex. And this has been proved by Arjan Seva. So what she has proved that, so if you take any torsion-free non-elementary hyperbolic group, so non-elementary here means the boundary of this group, it contains more than 2 points. And let us take an infinite index quasi-convex subgroup in G. So then there always exists some element outside this H such that the subgroup generated by this H and W is a quasi-convex subgroup of G. So this results tell you that, I mean, you can construct many quasi-convex subgroups in a hyperbolic group. Okay, so these are some properties of these hyperbolic groups. So this is again group theoretic. I mean, so if you take any hyperbolic group, so any hyperbolic group is finitely presented. And if you take any infinite hyperbolic group, so it always contains an infinite ordered element. Okay, so yeah, so these statements, most of the statements are here group theoretic, but it requires geometry to prove these things. Yeah, and as I said before, I mean, hyperbolic groups it do not contain Z cross Z. So all this thing you can find in the book by Bitson and Hapliger. So every non-elementary hyperbolic group, so it always contains a non-abelian free group. Okay, yeah, And again, one can prove that this quasi-convex subgroups of a hyperbolic group are hyperbolic. And finite intersection of quasi-convex subgroups is again a quasi-convex subgroup. Okay. And now if you take any quasi-convex subgroup in a hyperbolic group, so because it is a quasi-convex subgroup, so H is also a hyperbolic group. So the boundary of this H, it makes sense, Gromov boundary of H, it makes sense. And in fact, this delta H, this Gromov boundary of H, so this is in fact is embedded in the boundary of G. Okay, and the limit set of H in this the boundary is just homeomorphic to your this boundary of H. So here the limit set, I mean the set of all accumulation points of H in the boundary of G. Okay. So next thing, so I'll be proving that this quasi-convex subgroup has a finite height in hyperbolic group. So let us again recall the definition of height. So what do you mean by height? So height of an infinite subgroup is n.
May I ask a doubt?
Yes.
In the definition of quasi-convex subgroup, you just look at one orbit and say if that is
so so this definition is again well defined if you take any other orbit. So because the Hausdorff distance.
It's a point, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that I'm explaining. Yes. So point doesn't matter. So if you take any other orbit, okay, if you take any other orbit, so the Hausdorff distance between, I mean this. So if so H dot x, let us assume it to be quasi-convex. Now if you take any other orbit, the Hausdorff distance between those two orbits is bounded, uniformly bounded. So you can prove that the other orbit is also quasi-convex.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this height of an, so again, let me come to this definition. So height of an infinite subgroup is n. So if there exists a collection of n distinct cosets, G1, H, G, and H of H such that, so this n intersection of this conjugate is infinite and this n is maximal possible. Okay. Yeah. So now how do you prove that this quasi-convex subgroup has finite height? So proof is by contradiction, not contradiction. Okay. So if I take, so this intersection is infinite. Suppose this total intersection of this conjugate is infinite. So, and as I said that intersection of this quasi-convex set is quasi-convex. So this conjugate is again quasi-convex. So H is quasi-convex. So Gi H Gi inverse is quasi-convex, and finite intersection of quasi-convex set is again quasi-convex. So in particular, it is a hyperbolic group. So therefore, it contains an element of infinite order. Okay. So it means here. So this intersection, it contains an element of infinite order, and let us call that to be X. And you look into this sequence Xm. So this will give you 2 points, this X minus and X plus. So in the boundary, okay. So yeah, so this X minus and X plus, so this belongs to this intersection of this limit sets, and this limit sets, so these are in the boundary. Now what you do, so you join this 2 points, so this X minus and X plus, so these are at the boundary at infinity. So and you join this by a bi-infinite geodesic. Okay, so this geodesic will lie close to each of these cosets, Gi, H. So a point on this geodesic will lie in a fixed bounded neighborhood of each of Gi, H. And as this, so Cayley graph is locally finite because G, I have taken it to be finitely generated group. So because the Cayley graph is locally finite, so we have a bound on the number n. So that's why this quasi-convex subgroup has a finite height. Okay. So now let us move to yes.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to explain the last argument, last third point. So here, can you just read third point? Yeah, point.
Third point. Okay, so you have 2 points, X minus and X plus. Okay, so belonging to this intersection of this limit set. Okay.
Yes, yes.
And you join them by a geodesic. So this geodesic will lie close to each of this GIH, this coset, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Fixed bounded neighborhood. And you now you take a point on this geodesic and take a ball of that bound, this fixed bounded neighborhood, right? Let us call it to be some K. So you take a K ball around that point. So it will intersect all this GIH.
Yes, yes.
And as this graph is locally finite, so we have a bound on the number of n.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'll be interested in subgroups in other groups, either finitely generated groups. So before that, so I'll be defining this stable subgroup. So let me define this. So a quasi-geodesic gamma in a geodesic metric space is called to be n mods. So if there exists a function n such that if you take any k epsilon quasi-geodesic with endpoints on gamma, so then that Q lies in a closed n neighborhood of that gamma. Okay, so this definition is motivated from that property of stability of quasi-geodesic. Okay, and a subgroup of a finitely generated group is said to be stable. So if there exists a mod Scotch n such that any 2 points of H can be connected by a n mods geodesic. Okay, so one can prove that using the same idea that how do you prove that quasi-convex subgroup have finite height. So you can prove that the stable subgroups have finite height. So here, so there is something called Morse boundary. So you replace the Gromov boundary by Morse boundary, and you do the same kind of argument. So you'll get that stable subgroups have finite height. Okay, so now what are the examples apart from this hyperbolic group? So you take a genus G surface closed, yeah, so this is orientable, so I have not written down orientable. So SC is a closed orientable surface of genus G, where G is greater than or equals to 2. And you take a pseudo-anisotropy homeomorphism. So what does pseudo-anisotropy homeomorphism means? So phi n sigma is not homotopic to sigma, where sigma is a simple closed curve in this genus G surface. So phi to the power n, it does not preserve any homotopic class of this simple closed curves. So then if you take the cyclic subgroup generated by this phi, so this is in fact, it is a stable subgroup of this mapping class group. Yeah, and next example. So yeah, so next example, so if you take a free group of rank n and phi to be an auto-automorphism of this free group, and phi is fully irreducible auto-automorphism. So it means that so there does not exist so any non-zero integer p and a proper free factor a of this Fn such that phi to the power p, it fixes the conjugacy class of this a. So then so one can prove that this subgroup generated by phi is stable in out Fn. Okay, I think this has been proved by Bespina, Handel, so for reference. Yeah. So now let me move to examples where, again, examples of stable subgroups. Okay. So as Mahinder was telling in some lecture about this right angle Coxeter group. So you take any finite graph. So let gamma be a finite graph with vertex set V. And what do you mean by right angle Coxeter group? So it is the group generated by all this V, all the elements of this V. And what are the relations? So if you so x squared is 1. So if you take any vertex, so x squared is 1. And if x and y share an edge, so then xy is equal to yx. Okay. So this is the definition of this right angle Coxeter group. So Mossung has proved this thing. So this Coxeter group is hyperbolic. So if this gamma, this finite graph, so this has no induced squares. Okay. And Tran has proved this thing. So let us take this gamma to be the following finite graph. So this finite graph, and let us take this Cox-Sector group corresponding to this finite graph. And now let us take this. Okay, so if I take the Cox-Sector group generated by this graph gamma, so this is certainly not hyperbolic because this has a square. This FGDC, so it has a square, so therefore it is not a hyperbolic group. And now if you take the subgroup generated by this A, B, C, D, E, so this pentagon, so this in fact it is a stable subgroup of this thing, and hence it has a finite height in this Cox-Sector group. Okay. Okay, so there is similar concept called width of subgroups. So again, this has been defined by Gittik, Mitra, Rips, and Sagiv. So what do you mean by width of an infinite group? So this width of an infinite group is n. So if there exists a collection of n distinct cosets of H such that this pairwise intersection is infinite and this n is maximal possible. So earlier we have taken the total intersection of the conjugates. So here we have taken the pairwise intersection of the conjugate. So yeah, so if you know that a subgroup has finite width, so then automatically it has finite height. But so to prove this, so this proof is difficult. I mean, quasi-convex subgroups of a hyperbolic group have finite height. So to prove this thing, so one need this result that a quasi-convex subgroup has finite height. So again, this similar thing holds for the stable subgroups. So this has been proved by Antolin, Mann, Mada, Sisto, and Taylor. So they have proved that stable subgroups have a stable subgroups of a finitely generated group have finite width. Okay, so now so this is an open problem. So suppose you have a finite height. So does finite heights of a subgroup in a hyperbolic group implies the subgroup is quasi-convex? Okay, so we know that the quasi-convex subgroup of a hyperbolic group has finite height. So it's the converse true. So this is still an open problem. So as a partial converse, so Mitra has proved this thing. So suppose G splits in this way. So G is this amalgamation. So G1 star H G2. So where this group G is hyperbolic, G1 G2 is hyperbolic, and this H is quasi-isometrically embedded in G1 and G2. So then H has finite height in G if and only if H is quasi-convex in G. Okay, so the proof relies on the Bas-Serre theory and the construction of tree of space and construction of something called quasi-convex ladder and hallways. So I have given here idea of the proof, so I'll be not, because much time is not left, so I'll be not going to the proof. So let me skip this part. Okay, so now let me motivate. So how do you define this relatively hyperbolic group? So earlier we have described closed hyperbolic surface. So now what I will do is I will take one punctured torus. Let us take one punctured torus. And fundamental group of this is a free group on two generators. So this free group on two generators, so this again it acts freely properly discontinuously by isometries on this Poincare disk. So here the action is not co-compact. So this is my action. So if you take this by, so this by infinite geodesic, sorry. So this by infinite geodesic, and this A is taking this geodesic to this geodesic. Okay. So this is my, so you can say this is my ideal square. So you have this ideal square and you identify the opposite sides. So you will get this surface with genus 1, and this puncture has been taken to infinity. So we have a cusp here. Okay, so this red portion has been mapped to this cusp. So this the circles are called horocycles, and the disk inside this thing are called horodisk. Okay, so this is the formal definition of this hyperbolic group. So a finitely generated group is said to be hyperbolic with respect to some subgroups P1, P2, Pn. So again, if this G acts properly discontinuously and freely by isometries on a hyperbolic metric space X, and the quotient is your the quasi-isometric to OH of n copies of this rays. Okay, and now if you take a lift of this rays in X, the stabilizer subgroup of a lift of this infinity in the boundary of X. So these are just conjugates of all this P. Yeah. So this elements of this conjugates of P's are called parabolic elements, and yeah, are called parabolic elements, and it fixes. You can check that it fixes only one point of the boundary. And an element of this relatively hyperbolic group is called loxodromic. So it fixes exactly 2 points of the boundary, and it is called elliptic if it is of finite order. So there is a classification. So if you take any element of a relatively hyperbolic group, so it is either parabolic, loxodromic, or elliptic. Okay. So yeah, so the fundamental group of this surface, so this in fact it is hyperbolic relative to this commutator AB A inverse B inverse. Okay, so if you go back to this previous picture, so if you take the commutator AB A inverse B inverse, so this in fact it fixes, so it preserves a Horo disk. So it fixes a lift of this this cusp. Okay. So similar to quasi-convex subgroups, so I have the definition of this relatively quasi-convex subgroups. So what do you mean by relatively quasi-convex subgroups? So a subgroup H is said to be relatively quasi-convex. So if there exists an element X of this capital X, such that, so if you take, so this group is relatively hyperbolic, so it will act on a hyperbolic metric space X. So now if you take any geodesic gamma joining 2 points of the orbit, so the portions of the gamma which lies outside the horoballs, yeah, horoballs again it is similar to this Horo disk. So the portions of gamma which is lying outside the horoballs, so this will lie in an uniformly bounded neighborhood of this orbit. Yeah. So again, if you go back to the definition of height, so if you take any normal subgroup of a infinite normal subgroup of any group of infinite index, so if you take a infinite normal subgroup of infinite index of a group, so that automatically it has infinite height. So height of that subgroup is normal subgroup is infinite. So suppose G is hyperbolic relative to some Z cross Z, and let us take this H to be Z. So now if I just apply the previous definition of height, so this height of H is infinite. But this is not desirable because this H, this Z here, so this is a relatively quasi-convex in G. So we have to modify this definition a little bit. So this has been defined by Hruska and Weiss. So what do you mean by this relative height? So relative height of a subgroup of a relatively hyperbolic group is n. So if there exist n distinct cosets such that, so this intersection of this n conjugate, it contains only loxodromic elements, and n is maximal possible. Okay. So and again one can prove with the similar idea that, so if you take a relatively quasi-convex subgroup of a relatively hyperbolic group, so then the relative height of that subgroup has finite height, and the converse is again it is an open problem. Okay, so there is something called graph of groups. So given a graph, so I can have a graph of groups like this. So this lambda is a graph. So okay, so let me define it formally. So I think I have 5 minutes left, right? Okay, so what do you mean by graph of groups? So you take a graph lambda. So graph of groups, this thing, it is a, first of all, you have a connected graph lambda, and for each vertex, I have a vertex group. And for each edge, so I have a edge group. And these edge groups are embedded in the vertex group. So you have a monomorphism from the edge group to the vertex group. So by this assignment. So we have the concept of this graph of groups. And so this I'm not going. So corresponding to a graph of groups, so we have the concept of this fundamental group of graph of groups. So this fundamental group of graph of groups, so there is something called, so corresponding to a graph of groups, so there is Boas-Seret tree. So this fundamental group of this graph of groups, it acts on the Boas-Seret tree, and the quotient will be your this lambda. So for instance, so if you take this lambda to be a graph with a single edge and vertices v1 and v2, so you can check that the fundamental group is just the amalgamation. And if you take the lambda to be a loop with a single edge and a single vertex, and the fundamental group of that this graph of groups, so this will be this HNN extension. Okay. Yeah. So this has been proved by me that if you take the fundamental group of a finite graph of groups, and if you assume the vertex group to be relatively hyperbolic, and it is hyperbolic relative to this collection of finitely entered subgroups, so the edge groups are again quasi-asymmetrically embedded in the vertex groups and relatively quasi-convex in the vertex group. And I'll also assume that this G is hyperbolic relative to H. So this H is the collection of images of all this this HB in G. And also I'll assume that, so for each vertex B of lambda, so this vertex group has finite relative height in G. So then one can show that, so the vertex, so if you take any vertex group, so this is relatively quasi-convex subgroup of G. Okay, so then, so it is again partial answer to the converse problem. So this problem. So if you take any relatively quasi-convex subgroup, so then K has finite relative height. Okay, so as a partial converse, so we have this theorem. Sorry. So this again, it is a generalization of this Mahan's theorem. Okay, so I'll stop here. So these are the references. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Abhijit. Yes.
Yeah, any question, comments?
Can you go back to the theorem just you proved in the last? This
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, so this statement is little technical. I mean, you can take lambda to be just a single edge, so you'll get the amalgamation.